My sister told me to show her my knife when we were in the room. Hello everyone and welcome back to Love 30K Stories. I'm Samuel, and I'm glad you're here to listen to my story. Life sometimes brings unexpected events that force us to face situations we never imagined. Today, I want to share a moment that changed my life. It was a quiet night when my sister Sophia called out urgently, breaking the silence. She needed help grabbing clothes she'd forgotten upstairs. When I brought them to her, a brief moment through the slightly ajar bathroom door changed everything. The light revealed more than it should have, leaving me shaken and filled with emotions I couldn't control. From that day, my perception of Sophia, once just my loving sister, shifted in ways that troubled me deeply. I struggled with inappropriate feelings, knowing they crossed the line of our bond. To protect our relationship and regain control of myself, I made the difficult decision to move out. This taught me an important lesson. Emotions can be powerful, but knowing when to step back and preserve what truly matters takes strength. Sometimes, distance is the key to safeguarding love and respect. But before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to help it grow. Your support means a lot and motivates me to share more stories in the future. That night remains etched in my memory. The house was silent except for the hum of the TV when my sister's voice broke through, startling me. "Samuel, where are you? Help me." Her tone was sharp, almost panicked, making my heart race. I jumped up, calling back, "What's wrong?" Her voice came from the bathroom, a blend of urgency and embarrassment. I forgot my clothes. Can you grab them from my room?" My sister was a kind and graceful soul, had always been forgetful, and such requests were nothing new. But this time felt different. As I climbed the stairs, an odd unease crept over me. I found the clothes she'd left behind and carried them down. Knocking softly, I handed her the bundle. The door opened slightly, just enough for her hand to dart out, but the light from inside betrayed her. In that fleeting moment, her pale, unguarded figure was illuminated, every detail clear. I froze, my pulse thundering in my ears. Embarrassment hit me like a wave as I turned away, stammering an apology. That image stayed with me, unbidden and unwelcome. It marked the start of something I couldn't quite name, a mix of confusion, guilt, and emotions I wasn't ready to confront. Samuel couldn't shake the unsettling shift in his heart. Sophia was still his sister, the person closest to him in their quiet home. Yet the memory of that fleeting moment haunted him, gnawing at his thoughts and dragging him into a maze of feelings he couldn't understand. He felt lost, unsure of how to face her or himself. Sophia, at 22 years old, was undeniably captivating. She carried herself with an effortless confidence that drew everyone's gaze. Her delicate face was framed by soft, flowing hair, her almond-shaped eyes exuding warmth. She had a lithe, graceful figure, with a waist so perfectly defined it seemed sculpted. Her wardrobe often reflected her bold, carefree spirit, fitted dresses, snug tops, and outfits that highlighted her natural beauty. Whether by choice or chance, her presence always left a lingering effect on Samuel. His pulse quickened, and his thoughts strayed. Since that night, when he glimpsed her in the bathroom through the barely open door, everything inside him had shifted. The pale golden light had illuminated her ivory skin, the glistening water tracing the contours of her form. It was a vision he couldn't forget, no matter how hard he tried. He knew those moments shouldn't have happened. He knew such thoughts were wrong, but they clung to him like a shadow he couldn't escape. At first, he told himself it was fleeting, a trick of the mind that time would erase. Yet every night, as he lay in bed, the memory resurfaced with cruel clarity. each detail vivid and unrelenting. He began waking in the dead of night, drenched in cold sweat, his chest tight with guilt and confusion. The harder he tried to suppress the feelings, the fiercer they became, an uncontrollable fire consuming his reason, leaving him adrift each day in a sea of emotions he feared to name. She continued to live her days in her small house, blissfully unaware of the storm raging inside me. Her laughter rang out as it always had, light and carefree, and she called my name with that familiar, clear voice that once felt so ordinary, but now, even the sound of it stirred something inexplicable within me. Just looking into her sparkling eyes, or catching the faint scent of her gentle perfume as she passed by, sent a wave of unfamiliar emotions crashing over me. I didn't understand why I was like this. I was no longer myself. Everything about her, from the smallest detail to how she carried herself, seemed to draw me further into this whirlwind of confusion. Her tight-fitting clothes only heightened the tension, whether it was how she lounged on the sofa, her long legs elegantly crossed, or how she tied her hair up, baring her neck and shoulders. It all felt like too much. Each detail ignited a mix of shame, embarrassment, and a longing I couldn't suppress. Still, I forced myself to act as though nothing had changed. I laughed with her, helped her with small tasks, and even joked around just to see her smile. But beneath the surface, an intense struggle consumed me. My heart raced every time she was near, yet I avoided her gaze, afraid she might see the truth hidden in my eyes. I didn't know how long I could keep this act up, or what would happen if she discovered the chaos inside me. One afternoon, after a long and tiring day, I decided to retreat to my room for some relaxation. Watching an adult movie had become a private escape, a way to temporarily silence the chaos within me. It wasn't the first time, but this time felt different. Perhaps it was my unstable mood or the tangled thoughts that had plagued me recently, but everything on the screen seemed far more captivating than ever before. The images and feelings lingered long after the screen had gone dark, my mind adrift in a haze of sensations I couldn't shake. A sudden knock on the door jolted me back to reality. "Samuel, come out here for a moment." "Can you go buy some vegetables for dinner?" Sophia's voice resonated through the silent house, carrying its familiar blend of urgency and gentle warmth. "Yes, wait a moment," I responded quickly, hastily adjusting my clothes as I stood up, only to realize too late that I wasn't wearing any underwear. As I descended the stairs, my eyes immediately locked onto Sophia. She stood in the living room, her slim waist highlighted by a fitted t-shirt, while her shorts effortlessly showcased her long, graceful legs. Her every movement seemed effortless, every line of her figure striking in its perfection. My heart skipped a beat, and the thoughts I had just struggled to suppress came flooding back, overwhelming me like a tidal wave. I tried to compose myself, forcing my face into an expression of calm indifference, but my body betrayed me. A strange warmth surged through me, a mixture of admiration, confusion, and something far more dangerous. Before I could stop it, I felt my arousal, a horrifying realization given my lack of underwear. Panic set in, my mind racing to find a way out of this impossible situation. Then, out of nowhere, Sophia burst into laughter. Her voice drifted through the room, light and carefree, yet laced with an edge of unsettling indifference. She looked at me with eyes sparkling with something unspoken, something I couldn't decipher. Confused and deeply embarrassed, I stammered, "What's wrong? Did I do something funny?" Her laughter grew louder, forcing her to turn away as she tried to stifle it. "Samuel, it's not good for you to come out like this," she said between fits of laughter, covering her mouth as if that could contain her amusement. I stood frozen, my face burning with shame. "What are you talking about?" I asked, still clueless about what had triggered her reaction. She shook her head, her tone shifting to something more serious, but tinged with amusement. No, it's nothing. Go back upstairs. I'll go alone. Her words left me paralyzed with confusion. Why had she called me out in the first place only to dismiss me now? I watched her retreat, a swirl of doubt and humiliation consuming me. My mind screamed for answers, but I couldn't ask. Instead, I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. I returned to my room, my thoughts swirling in a chaotic mess. As I walked past the mirror, something unexpected caught my eye, rooting me to the spot. That's when the realization hit me like a thunderbolt. Why Sophia had laughed so uncontrollably. I realized with a jolt that I wasn't wearing any underwear, and to my horror, my little guy had been at full attention the entire time. My face flushed crimson, a wave of shame surging through me. I stood rooted to the spot, my reflection mocking me. Embarrassment clawed at my chest, and I didn't know whether to laugh at my stupidity or crawl under the bed to hide forever. Her laughter echoed in my mind, vivid and unrelenting. Did Sophia notice? She must have. There was no other reason for her to laugh so loudly, yet she hadn't said anything directly. Instead, she had shyly told me to go back to my room. Why? The unanswered questions sent my heart racing. Was she simply amused by the ridiculousness of the moment? Or did she see something more? Something I wasn't ready to face. I flopped onto the bed, covering my burning face with my hands, trying to erase the awkwardness that had taken hold of me. But the memory of her laughter, expression, and the subtle confusion in her eyes wouldn't leave. I opened my eyes and blinked. Disoriented from the pain, I glanced around. Guilt weighed heavy on my heart, yet a faint, unspoken hope flickered somewhere deep within, impossible to ignore. What if she thought of me differently? Or was it all in my head? My thoughts spiraled, torn between shame and a yearning I couldn't fully understand. When Sophia came home, I was still reeling from the embarrassment of what had happened earlier. Although I wasn't entirely sure, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had seen something that had made her laugh. The more I dwelled on it, the more my face burned, as if I had been caught red-handed doing something I shouldn't have. Still, I forced myself to stay calm, convincing myself to act as though nothing was amiss. Determined to return to normalcy, I headed to the kitchen to help Sophia prepare dinner, hoping to restore the usual easy atmosphere between us. The moment I walked in, I greeted her with all the casualness I could manage, masking the tension. "You're back. Was it crowded at the market?" "Yes." Without looking back, she answered sharply, "It's fine, though a little crowded. Come help me." I nodded and approached her as she washed vegetables at the sink. Sitting down, I began breaking branches of the greens she had set aside for boiling. The room was silent, save for the steady sound of running water. Yet inside me, the tension was suffocating. My thoughts churned. Did she notice what had happened, or was I overthinking everything? I told myself to let it go, hoping that if I didn't bring it up, it would gradually fade away and disappear. But then her voice cut through the silence, sharp and unexpected. "Are you done yet?" I froze, her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. My mind raced, over-analyzing her tone, her intent. Did she mean something deeper, or was it just an innocent question? My heart pounded furiously, but I forced myself to respond as if I didn't understand. "Oh, yeah, I just finished. It's okay, right?" She turned to look at me then, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Her expression was unreadable. A playful smirk tugged at her lips. "Well, if you're done, just leave it there. I'll handle the rest." Her tone was light, almost teasing, but something about it felt different, like an unspoken joke at my expense. My chest tightened with embarrassment. I avoided her gaze, nodding stiffly. "All right," I mumbled, quickly standing up. Inside, I was anything but calm, but I kept my face composed, retreating before my composure cracked. "Then let me go upstairs. You can finish here. I'm a little tired," I said, forcing a calm tone. Sophia smiled faintly, but didn't respond, her silence laced with something unreadable. Taking that as my cue, I quietly left the kitchen, trying to keep my steps steady and unhurried, despite the storm raging inside me. When I finally made it back to my room, I collapsed onto the bed, overwhelmed by shame and embarrassment. Her question from earlier echoed endlessly in my mind, stirring a mix of confusion and self-reproach. Did she know? Could she sense what I was thinking? The possibility made my chest tighten with guilt. I pressed my hands over my face, whispering like a mantra, "She's my sister. Sophia is my sister." No matter how often I told myself to forget it, her teasing smile and playful voice lingered in my mind, refusing to fade. The memory clung to me, relentless and inescapable. Later that night, after we'd all finished dinner, I retreated to my room, hoping the quiet would help me regain some semblance of control. I busied myself tidying the clutter on my desk, trying to distract my restless mind. Outside, the gentle hum of insects echoed in the air, contrasting with the heavy silence that filled my room. I was stacking books when a soft knock on the door startled me. "Who is it?" I called, my voice tinged with curiosity. "Wait," Robert asked as I peeked into his thoughtful eyes. "It's me, Sophia," she replied, her tone gentle and familiar. "Do you mind helping me with something?" "Amy?" "Of course," I said quickly, heading to the door. As I opened it, my breath caught. Standing there was Sophia, but my eyes were immediately drawn to her pajamas, a light blue silk gown that gently hugged her figure. The material shimmered softly under the dim light, highlighting her smooth, pale skin. The neckline dipped slightly, revealing a hint of her collarbone and slender shoulders. My heart skipped a beat, but I fought to keep my expression neutral. She smiled, stepping into the room with her phone in hand. "Something's wrong with my phone," she began. "Every time I open an app, it crashes. I tried restarting it, but it didn't work. Can you take a look?" I took the phone from her and said, "Let me try," maintaining a calm voice in spite of the chaos. "It's probably a software glitch, perhaps caused by an app conflict or an update issue." Sophia stood nearby, her presence calm and natural. However, with me, her proximity, especially in those pajamas, was overwhelming. The small space of my room seemed to amplify everything: her scent, voice, and the unsettling emotions I was desperately trying to suppress. I looked down at the phone, diving into the settings to diagnose the issue. As I suspected, her operating system was outdated, causing compatibility issues with the new app version. "Your phone needs an operating system update," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me download the update and reinstall it. That should fix the problem." "Oh, thank goodness. I thought it was broken," Sophia said, her voice soft with relief. As I bent down, focused on downloading the update, I felt her gaze on me, intense, unwavering. My instincts kicked in, and I glanced at her from the corner of my eye. She wasn't watching the phone or what I was doing. Her eyes were fixed on me. Then, she smiled a smile I couldn't decipher, which sent my heart racing and my thoughts spiraling. I hesitated briefly, compelling myself to keep working, though my fingers faltered slightly. I struggled to suppress the confusion building inside me. I knew what that look meant, what she had just noticed, but I didn't dare to acknowledge it, let alone address it. "It's ready," I said, my voice uneven when I returned the phone. "It should work fine now." "Oh, that was quick, thanks," she replied, her smile still lingering on her lips. As she took the phone, her eyes flickered toward my face, as though testing my reaction. "It's nothing, 'tis a minor issue," I said, feigning calmness. But beneath the surface, my emotions churned, her subtle glances and gestures nerving me. 3 more minutes, and then she said, her fingers slowly fumbling over the control button for me to set the bell. Thinking the moment was finally over, I prepared to stand and walk her out of my room. But just as I moved to speak, she hesitated, her presence lingering in the doorway, making my heart pound once more. She suddenly turned around, leaned against the table's edge, and asked softly, her voice layered with meaning, "Do I look beautiful, Samuel?" The unexpected question hit me like a wave, leaving me momentarily speechless. I awkwardly smiled, trying to deflect. "Of course it's beautiful, but why are you asking that all of a sudden? Is something wrong?" Sophia smiled faintly, her eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made me uneasy, as if she were trying to read my every thought. Tilting her head slightly, she spoke in a teasing, yet oddly serious tone. "Did you see me earlier? Is that why you saluted?" Her words struck me like lightning. My face burned as every ounce of blood rushed to it. My heart pounded in my chest, and confusion overwhelmed me. "No, it's not like that. What are you talking about?" I stammered, shaking my head furiously. But her eyes didn't waver. That faint, knowing smile lingered, making me feel even more vulnerable. She took a step closer, the space between us shrinking, the small room seemingly closed in on me. I instinctively stepped back, desperate to maintain distance, but she moved forward again, suddenly gripping my shoulders. Her face was just inches from mine, her warm breath brushing against my skin. "Samuel, what's there to fear? We're both grown-ups. I know what's on your mind. I've seen it all before." I turned my face away, refusing to meet her gaze. "Sophia, stop it. Whatever you're saying, it's not funny. Don't joke like this." My voice trembled, betraying the panic rising within me. But she didn't stop. She inched closer, her voice soft, yet piercing. "Why are you avoiding me, Samuel? I know you want me to." Her words sliced through me like a blade, shattering any semblance of control I had left. My chest tightened as the air grew thick around us, and my heart pounded so loudly I thought it might burst. "Don't," I said, my voice low but firm, cutting through the tension. "Don't say it." I stepped back, creating space between us, and forced myself to meet her gaze, despite the fear and confusion threatening to consume me. "Do you even realize what you're saying? This is wrong, Sophia. You're my sister." For a brief moment, pain flickered in her eyes. She hesitated, her voice soft and almost pleading. "Samuel, stop lying to yourself. I can see it in your eyes. You don't need to pretend or conceal your feelings." I froze every muscle in my body. Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, but I fought to keep my resolve. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my voice. "No, Sophia, you're wrong. I don't feel that way. I don't want that. We're family, and that's all we'll ever be." Her expression faltered, disappointment and shame washing over her face. She searched my eyes as if looking for a glimmer of hope. But I held my ground. Finally, she stepped back, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Feel calm and peaceful, and imagine that you have mirrors staring back at you." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know why I'm like this. I should go." Layla nodded. That was a compassionate outlook. Without another word, she turned and left the room, each step heavy, dragging the suffocating tension with her. When the door closed behind her, I fell onto the bed and felt like I had just weathered a storm. My mind was a mess, tangled with emotions I couldn't control. Her words echoed in my head, exposing feelings I had tried so hard to suppress, feelings I didn't want to admit, even to myself. She was right in some ways. I couldn't deny the stray thoughts, the fleeting moments of confusion. But no matter how strong those emotions were, reason held firm. She was my sister, and that line could never be crossed. As I sat alone in the room, my heart ached with guilt and torment. Every word and action tonight had shaken the fragile boundary between us. I knew that if I let myself slip, even for a moment, everything would crumble beyond repair. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the dark ceiling, my mind racing through everything that had happened in just one day. The bond between Sophia and me, something I had always taken for granted, had shifted in a way that felt irreparable. I replayed her eyes, her smile, and the hidden meaning behind her words. She had always been the person I trusted most, someone I felt closest to, but now everything had changed. I didn't even dare to think about what tomorrow might bring. I kept asking myself if staying here, in this house, would one day make it impossible for me to control myself. I understood something deeply here. Feelings, no matter how strong, couldn't overcome temptation if left unchecked. Sophia was too close and familiar, but dangerously intertwined with my feelings. I feared that if I didn't create some distance, the boundaries between us would eventually collapse completely one day. After hours of lying there, unable to rest, a decision began to form. It was a bold, perhaps even radical choice, but deep down, I knew it was the only way to shield myself and Sophia from a mistake that could never be undone. I had to leave. I needed to create enough physical and emotional distance to stop these feelings from growing. It wasn't just about fixing the problem. It was about safeguarding my family, preserving my bond with Sophia. The next morning, while we sat down for breakfast as a family, I was making the announcement. My voice trembled with uncertainty, but I tried to remain calm. "Mom, Dad, I think I'm going to move out," I said. My father put down his teacup, eyes widening with surprise. "Why, all of a sudden? You're still young. Wouldn't it be more convenient to stay here?" "Is something wrong?" My mother's concerned gaze met mine. "Samuel, is there something bothering you? If you feel uncomfortable at home, you don't have to keep it to yourself. Please, just tell us." I forced a smile, hoping it would reassure them, even though my heart was twisted in knots. "No, Mom, Dad, it's just, I feel like I've grown up now. I think it's time for me to be more independent. Moving out will help me manage my life and prepare me better for the future." My father looked thoughtful, furrowing his brow, but after a moment he nodded. "If you've decided, then we respect that. But always remember, if you ever need anything or find yourself in trouble, you can always return home. It will always be here for you." My mother, though still worried, didn't argue. "Take good care of yourself. If you need help finding a place or with the move, don't hesitate to reach out whenever you need." Relieved that they hadn't objected more strongly, I nodded. Though I knew they were concerned, I couldn't change my mind. This was the wisest choice for Sophia and me. I needed space to work through the chaos in my mind, get back to who I was, and protect the peace we'd had before everything had started to unravel. That day, I started looking for a small apartment. As chaotic as my emotions were, I knew this was necessary. I needed time. I needed distance from Sophia, from everything that was clouding my judgment. Through all this, I learned something important. Emotions are difficult to control, but not impossible to manage. Moments of weakness, when left unchecked, can easily spiral into something dangerous, blurring the lines of morality and family. Nonetheless, the ability to distinguish between right and wrong, and to stay rational despite our emotions, will protect us from making irreversible mistakes. I realize that acknowledging your emotions isn't wrong, but knowing where to set boundaries and when to step back is crucial. Sometimes, creating space isn't about avoiding your feelings. It's about protecting what truly matters: love, respect, and self-worth. The biggest lesson I took away was that courage isn't always about facing something head-on. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to walk away, to leave a dangerous situation before things spiral too far. Stepping away from harm isn't a sign of weakness. It's a courageous act of self-preservation, a deliberate choice to protect yourself and those around you from potential pain. Through this story, I have advice for everyone. In life, we cannot avoid unexpected situations that stir uncontrollable emotions. Whether these emotions are brief or lingering, they can lead to mistakes if we don't manage them properly. That's why my advice is to always approach every relationship with a clear mind and a strong sense of boundaries. When you feel yourself caught in an emotional spiral beyond your control, pause and ask yourself if this emotion is worth risking the precious things you have. When you understand yourself, action will only calm your feelings and accelerate you. Mindfulness and self-reflection can help you realize that acting on emotions may destroy the values you cherish, such as family bonds, honor, or self-respect. If you struggle to control yourself, don't be afraid to distance yourself or seek support from family, friends, or a mental health professional. Avoidance isn't a weakness, it's a protective measure against deeper hurt. Remember, the choices you make today can impact your future and the lives of those around you. Maintaining boundaries and respecting your morals and values is the key to living a peaceful and happy life. That's the end of my story. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next videos.